Grab a drink and join the chat. Let's start the show.
Hey girl, hey!
It looks like we're having just a few technical blah blah blah. Look, even my words are technical difficult right now. But it looks like we're having a few technical difficulties. So let me swap. Let's see. Give us like 10, 9, 8,
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Injection, baby.
Yes, let's go.
That's so old school.
This is what happens with the live show, but we roll with the punches and we keep it moving.
That's all you can do. That is absolutely all you can do. And keep it moving and keep going and keep growing. And I think as we keep going, we get to learn through all of these things that are happening. And what we're seeing is we get all this stuff.
Yes.
We get to learn. We get to learn. We get to grow. We get to keep going. We get to keep flowing.
Yes. And here's the thing. Things have been flawless and seamless all season. And today is the last episode of the season with my special guest. And see, it's just the world doesn't want the season to end. And that's why it's trying to give us technicalities. But, you know, we're going to keep it pushing and we're going to keep it moving. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start the show. You are watching the Happy Hour Show with Lindsey Vertner, and I am your host, Lindsey Vertner, your peak potential strategist and transformational speaker. I teach female entrepreneurs and ambitious leaders how to master their mindset and increase their self-care, self-worth, and self-discipline. And I'm super excited about tonight's guest. We had the honor of speaking at the same summit a couple of months ago, and we've been connected ever since. Her name is Mrs. Kesha Kent, and she is born and raised from the St. Louis area. So if you're from St. Louis, then stand up.
Hop in, STL. Stand up.
Even if you're not from St. Louis, let us know where you're viewing from in the comments either way, okay? She has been in the Human Resources Department for over 17 years. That's what she specializes in, human resources, and is a diversity and inclusion expert. She has done staff development training all over the place. She's a wife, mother, just like so many of you watching out there. She is known as an energetic speaker, passionate influencer with an innate ability to grow individuals to their highest potential. So, you know, that's why I like her, right? Yes. She draws individuals in and allows them to grow, develop, and build lasting relationships, which is all why she is the author of her book, which we will talk about later. So without further ado, make sure you comment on this video, post your questions below, share this video out, and welcome my special guest, Kesha Kent. Hello, hello.
Hello, my sister girl, sister friend. How are you, girl?
I am well. I am well. How are you doing?
Absolutely blessed is the only thing that I can say in this day and age is blessed. I'm here because there's a purpose. I'm blessed.
Yes, I love it. I love it. And we already have some folks viewing in from all different places. We have Miss Renette watching. Hello, ladies, from Evansville, Indiana. We have Miss Tiffany. Yes, Miss Tiffany watching. She says, good evening, ladies. Raining in from Elgin, Illinois. So welcome. Make sure you comment, share, love this video, and post your questions for Mrs. Kesha below. Meanwhile, tell us about yourself. Tell us about your background. Give us the nitty-gritty of who Kesha Kent is.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Lindsey. I always think of it in this fashion. I start off as I'm a wife first, because in everything that I get to do, I get to show up as my authentic self. And I believe a portion of that is because God created me to do that, but he gave me the right partner to do it with. And I think as I look back at all the things that I've done, being in the right relationship has helped me move into this powerhouse that I am. I was born and raised in the city of St. Louis. I'll say that over and over and over. I moved away to the Chicagoland area when I was in 7th grade. And I'm telling you, it took the breath out of me. It was a completely different environment. It was completely different for my spirit. I was away from my grandmother, who is my living everything. And it was completely different for me. So I had to learn to thrive in that area. But as I think about when I came back to St. Louis and look at where I've been in life in these different cities, I understand that all those things have purpose. And because I get to lead diversity and inclusion today, I know that it's because I live next door to a Laotian girl who became my best friend, and all these things, Asian girls living on my block. I've lived and slept and breathed diversity, and I got to learn different cultures. But I keep reminding myself that it could not have happened had I not been uprooted in 7th grade and moved to the Chicagoland area. So once I got over all of that trauma in my spirit, it didn't happen well until high school when I started to figure that out and find myself again. Because in high school, I flunked out. Freshman year, I was fighting all the time. You couldn't tell me anything about going to school to learn. I was livid. I walked around mad all the time.
What?
Girl, baby kid to the 10th power, I keep saying. But it all had purpose, and I keep looking back at it now, that had I not moved away, I wouldn't have had diverse friends. There wouldn't have been white kids in my classroom. There wouldn't have been other races, because living in the city of St. Louis, unfortunately, what happens in our public schools, we all look exactly the same. And there's not diversity, which I think moving away allowed me to get such a diverse perspective and learn about cultures that today as an adult, I'm grateful. I am so grateful for the journey. But had it not been for that journey, my perspective would be different, absolutely different.
Yeah, nice. Nice. I'm still stuck on the fact that you said you flunked out and was fighting all the time. Like,
girl,
I
didn't get it together until probably at the end of sophomore year. And then when something clicked, I had a teacher that believed in me, that said to me that there was more. His name was Mr. Taylor. He was my history teacher at Elgin High School. I still remember him. He gave me something that helped me even start to think and dream again. And he taught me about economics. He taught about history. He said, now what you can do is you can go to summer school and catch up, baby, because I had D's and C's barely making it each semester. By the time I got to sophomore year, I needed to get a checkup from the neck up. And I didn't have my grandmother right here in the same zip code anymore. And it was completely different for me, wilding out, trusting people. running around just as crazy as I could be and not really understanding the gifts that God gave me, not walking in my authentic lane. I think that's what happened. People pleasing, doing what people wanted, started to be promiscuous, all those things that happen when we get out of our authenticity. And I think as I look today at all of these things and all of those gifts, they're gifts. And I don't take anything as a loss. It's all lessons. That's the only L I'm taking. Lessons.
Yes, I love that. I always say you have to turn your losses into lessons.
Okay.
Find the message in your mess, and you did just that.
It took me a little bit, but I found it.
Better late than never, right?
Woo, woo, woo.
And I just want to dive a little bit deeper into that. We have some more people tuning in. Make sure you let us know where you're from. Make sure you grab your drink, put your question below. We have Victoria from Vegas. We have Wintra Johnson.
What's
Good
up,
evening.
Wintra?
Thanks for tuning in. Yes, yes. Grab your drink and join the chat. If you are just now tuning into the show, you are watching the Happy Hour Show with Lindsey, Vertner, and my guest, Kesha Kent. She is a diversity and inclusion expert, speaker, author. She does all the things and she does them well. Okay. So
Lindsey.
back to what you just said about you had a teacher that really believed in you and helped to motivate you to kind of change things around when your grandmother wasn't present nearby anymore. And that really stood out to me because I remember the school that I went to. I went to predominantly white school. So I had the opposite of you.
Wow.
Yeah. Black school. I went to a predominantly white school.
Okay.
And the district that I was in, actually, so my elementary school, I lived in that district, but then we ended up moving and I was no longer in that district. And I'm thankful for my mother who was willing to drive literally across town for years to take me to school. Right? Biggest supporter right there. But when I was in the 5th grade, one of my teachers, she had spoken with my mother and she said, I think it would be a disservice if your child, if Lindsey went to middle school in her district, and I don't think it'll be challenged.
Wow.
Because I was gifted and talented as an elementary school kid. And she was like, I really think if you're able to, that you take her to Plaza Park, which was in white neighborhoods, even more so than my elementary school. And it was further out than my elementary school. And so it was just a better school than a district. And so it was her planting that seed in my mother. And my mother asked me what I wanted to do, because of course, all of my friends were going to the feeder middle school. And my mother, she noticed the personality and the skills in me, and she drove me across town.
Come on, Mama.
Day after day, so that I could go to essentially this better school. What continued to be typically one of the few Black kids in class. So I had a whole different experience.
Wow,
I had
Lindsey.
in the neighborhood, but then white people all around me as far as education goes, Just feed us, give us some insight on that.
The one thing that I'm learning today is, and as we look at diversity in our schools and look at how we can make sure that our students that are in these situations, that we equip them, I think it starts at the administrators, and for them having an idea of how to show up to teach children that may not look like them, but understanding that their culture, teaching their true history, because what happens if you don't have teachers that are passionate about teaching, what'll happen is you'll get those kids like me. I was a baby's kid, and I'm just saying I fought a lot and I had those things going on. But if we think about those kids in that space, had I not have had teachers that said, you know what, we need to figure out what's happening with you, those kids get suspended. They get kicked out. They don't get the same experience that other students get from other districts. I'm just saying. But as administrators, as we teach them the power of diversity and culture and even understanding those kids and their makeup, their backgrounds, building relationships with those families. I think that's the biggest thing that we can do as administrators, are build relationships with the communities that we serve. Absolutely.
Mhm.
And think about, from your perspective, you probably have stories that you can tell us about, even being the single man out in those environments, and thinking that you had to go on and fight even harder. My husband went through something similar to that as well. He was in the desegregation program here in St. Louis. So he went all the way out to school, and it probably took him on the bus 2 hours every morning. They had to leave home at 6 a.m. to get to this school. But what he said was, when he got to that school, he saw that these students were excelling, and it made him want to do better. It made him even more competitive. Okay, this student has the A. I'm getting up there next week. I'm going to have the A. And it really made him even more competitive and helped him really find his voice when it came to that. But I think because our kids like that go right back to the same community, what happens is, if there's nothing that is keeping them in that mindset of being at that school district, if they don't take that home, if they don't have the teachings at home, it's impossible for them to leave their communities and go to that school and act like, okay, the gangs aren't there, drugs aren't there, all those things that happen. They go to those schools and come back, and the same stuff is happening, whether they go out to the predominant school or not. It's those same
Mhm.
things that keep happening. So I think that as we look at even all of those pieces, the big thing is the motivation, the support, and the encouragement for those students. And I love how you said that your mom drove you all the way out there, probably preaching to you that whole way, all right? Now, talking you through it, getting you ready for what was coming. That is such a big deal. My God.
Yes. Yes, like I'm forever grateful to my mom. She was always very supportive, and I realized that not a lot of people have those parental figures that are full of support of them. And so I'm forever indebted to her for that. Luckily, she only had to do that for a few years before eventually there was a school bus that went to the south side of town.
Okay.
Like a group of us. And so that was not until high school, though. So I had middle school that she had to drive me back and forth for 3 years. But then once I got to high school, which was still that feeder school for that middle school and high school, then there was a bus that went to the south side. There was like a singular bus on the south side that drove all the way to the east side with a group bus.
Whoa,
So again,
yeah.
I was not going to the school in my district. And it's so crazy because whenever I got to, so I went to undergrad at Indiana University,
Okay.
and I was one of the few not the few students, but there were two different groups of students of color, should I say, that were incoming freshmen. There was group students, and then there was Hudson and Holland students. And let me tell you the difference between those. The Hudson and Hollands were on academic scholarship. That's what they came.
Okay, I hear you.
Students came in as barely making it type. You're in this group's program to help you get here, but you barely made it in, and you had summer school. And it was crazy because oftentimes when I very first got to IU as an undergrad, so many people would say, oh, you must be in groups. You must be in groups. And I'm sitting like, what the hell is groups? Why is everybody thinking I'm in groups? Come to find out, because I was a Black student on campus, then had to have some from the groups.
Oh, wow.
So that was the realization that I had my freshman year, thinking that all of us, was in this bubble. All of the white kids thought I was in the bubble, and even the Black kids thought, oh, wait, I don't remember seeing you at summer school. You in groups too? Like, no, I'm actually here. Academic scholarship in Hudson Holland. So just even navigating those two worlds together and realizing that, I wonder if I went to my feeder school if I would be coming in groups instead of Hudson Holland.
My goodness. Wow. That is something. My goodness. Girl,
It's
that is
crazy.
something. And when
It's
you think about
crazy.
all of that, that is, and I look at all of those things as how they shaped us. And one of the reasons that I volunteer and I give back because I know the experiences that I had. And so it's my decision and it's my heart to make sure that I can pour into communities that may lack those things that other communities
Mm.
have. Even when I think of division and how sometimes in our own race we have different different divisions. But one of the things I make sure that I do is make sure that I can communicate and have a conversation with anybody. And I do that
Yes.
by building relationships and really getting to know people. And that's the biggest thing that we can keep doing, having and building relationships. You said it, Wintra, conversations
Yes.
and relationships.
Yes. Yes. She was right on right there. And she also says virtual teaching is the perfect time to form relationships with parents.
Ooh, come on, teachers and administrators.
We're now in a whole other space, right?
Wow, absolutely. And it depends if they're at home though. That's the thing because I'm seeing that in some communities, some parents aren't at home. I have a girlfriend who works, she is a nursing assistant and her children, her mother helps the kids with their virtual school during the day. And even as we think about how we're moving into this virtual landscape, I keep saying just give people grace, and give people grace. And so building those relationships, you're right, with those families is everything. It's everything. Absolutely everything.
Yes, yes, I do believe that. And understanding, like, my kids, they're both at the same elementary school, and like their teachers know that they can call me up if something is wrong. Like, I have very good children, they're well behaved and well educated and everything. And so anytime that they act up at school, the
Call
teachers
me.
automatically know that it's a problem because one, I'm not having it. Two, they know their track record. So they know, like, oh,
Yeah.
hey, this is not like Tyler. This is not like Carmen. Let me call mom because I know that that's going to nip it in the bud right there. So being able to have that relationship with your child's educational
Absolutely.
person, whoever that is so crucial because then you can whip it into shape. You can find out, you know, if something's happening at school or anything like that. I know my son had went through a moment earlier, like in his preschool days on to kindergarten, was completely out of character for him.
Oh.
And man, like when I say, ooh, it did something to my heart. I was questioning myself as a mother, like, oh my goodness. But once I really understood who my child was, what he was, and what was going on, like that's another reason why it's important to tap into your children and understand that they are little humans with emotions and feelings as well, but they often don't understand how to express them effectively. Shells, adults don't know how to express emotions effectively, so how can you expect a 3 and 4 and 5-year-old to do it? But once I got down to the root of it, like everything was all better. And it wasn't so much as, you know, anything that I was doing, but it was more so his environment and the other kids that were in the classroom that he was watching and learning from. And he went from a very structural system at home to going to this preschool where he had switched classes that had less structure than what he was used to. Added
That's
to
a big deal. That's a big deal.
Added to now he has also a new sibling, so all of those factors all in one.
He was all over the place.
I had a moment. I had a moment with my son, but we got it together.
Good. There you go. There you go. Wow. Think about all of that. That's a lot for him. That's a lot. We can't even navigate all of that as adults.
Yes.
Let alone expecting a kid to do it.
Right. Also important for parents to not only have a relationship with your child's support system as a whole, but also to understand and ask questions, because I know my brother is an educator. He is an expert in that field, and he says a lot of times parents just know and they automatically take the word of the teacher or the school figure or somebody of, a higher status, so to speak. I wasn't having that though, because they had came to me and was like, "Oh, we need to get your son tested for this and for that," and
they're quick to label somebody. Stop labeling these kids.
Right now, my son, no, you won't. So I said, I'm gonna appease you with all the tests just so that we can throw that out the window, and you can't say, "Well, you didn't do this," because I did. So I did their one that they had recommended. I even hired my own. He was exceptional across all the boards. There were no issues or anything like that. I said, "Okay, so what's your excuse now? What you're not gonna do?"
What you're not gonna do?
Right. You're not about to put that label on my son. No. And no, I just have to give him some extra loving, some extra talking. And I realized
whooping if that needs to happen.
Right. It was more so the structure. The structure was not there. He didn't have it. So
yeah, that's a big deal. And we have to stop as parents and really pay attention to all of those pieces, especially when they're acting out and they're doing something that they don't normally do. That's the bottom line. We have to make sure we're able to stop and figure that thing out, but be willing to be attentive enough to even recognize when something is off too. That's a great point. That's a great point. Such a great point.
And it brings it right back to diversity and inclusion, which you are an expert in, which I want to hop right back into that, because it started in preschool, went over to elementary school as a kindergartner. And so now it's a completely different structure. And so that's when it was like, wait, so now we're in a different environment. What's going on? And it started out well, but then it was another student, a melanin deficient student, that was, saying derogatory things because he was legit the only brown kid in his whole class, including "I'm gonna kill your mother." Like, think about kindergartners, somebody telling your kindergarten child that "I'm gonna kill your mother," but in a more racially derogatory way. And I found that out, when I say I scheduled my next volunteer day so quick.
And that is an opportunity right now. I see that as an opportunity for the school to have some hard conversations with that family, and really being able to educate that family as well. Because I say this all the time, kids mimic what they see. They mimic what they hear, and they mimic what they see. And when we see those things, that's an opportunity to now educate and listen to understand. Now, he said it, acknowledge that. Now, listen to understand and come from a perspective where we can educate. But that education has to happen at that parent level, and then it trickles down. But that's a great opportunity for them to now starting to educate around diversity and inclusion, around culture, all of those things that we get an opportunity to educate on, because sometimes there's a lack of knowledge, but there again has to be a willingness to understand. Listening to understand and pay attention to what's happening and educate. We must be willing to educate, and we are quick to throw people away, but I say throw that whole thought away and really think about how we can educate individuals and bring them to a perspective where they can now see from our lenses, because we all, at the same time, we have our perspectives, and we all have unconscious bias. I say this all the time. It's a given. Everyone has unconscious bias. Harvard has an amazing assessment that they have on their website around unconscious bias. And when I first took it, I was like, but it's so authentic and it's so real that it really helps you look at the areas where you can say, okay, now there's some work I need to do here. None of us are perfect, but because of society, because of the norms, because of our culture, we are all biased. We just are. I don't care what anybody says. It doesn't mean that you're racist. We are all biased, and we all have our biases over certain things. Certain neighborhoods, we may feel, if I go to this neighborhood, somebody might steal my purse. All these crazy things that we think about. We may cross the street if a man of color is walking down the street and we're by ourselves. What is it? it's unconscious bias. And as we acknowledge what it is, that's how we then can start to plant seeds that will harvest some amazing fruit in our communities and in our culture and society as a whole.
Yes, yes. So what are some tips that you would give as far as, becoming more aware of your unconscious bias and then beginning to change those?
Mm-hmm. The first thing I would say is acknowledge. And then when you acknowledge the fact that everybody has unconscious bias, I think when you acknowledge it first, what happens once you acknowledge it, you can then start to research other cultures, but put yourself out there. If everybody on your team, so I'm thinking of our workplaces, or even if you're an entrepreneur, you have a small business, if everybody on your team looks the same, you are lacking the ability to even learn from other cultures. You're lacking the ability to even learn from a different, diverse perspective. You want to make sure that you're opening up yourself to learn different cultures, to get deep, to ask questions, and really truly build authentic relationships. I keep saying, if everybody in your network looks the same, you need to diversify your network and make sure that you on purpose have other people in your network. Everybody's perspective will be different, but as you diversify and make sure that if you have all women in your network, you need to make sure that you are diversifying. And the way that you meet new people is go to events. And now virtually everything is everywhere virtually. You can jump on these meetings. You can go on Eventbrite. Eventbrite is the #1 place that I send people. Meetup.com has events and spaces on there where you can post events and you can see things. But I think getting into different industries and learning about, so if you're in technology, finding those events that are in technology that have different people, and make sure that you put yourself out there and you do the work. Nothing's going to happen unless we are willing to do the work. It's not just going to happen. If we live in neighborhoods where everybody looks the same, we have to now think about having a doctor that's not of our same race. People don't want to hear that though. But if everybody in your network, if every doctor, if everything that you do and everybody looks the same, you're missing opportunities to learn about the vast society that we live. We live in an amazing society. And when we think about God's love and all this peace and all this grandeur that he gives us, when we're intentional about building relationships, it trumps everything, which is the bottom line to networking, relationships.
Yes, I love it. I love it. If you are just tuning in, you are watching the Happy Hour Show with Lindsey Vertner. I'm your host with my very special guest, Mrs. Kesha Kent. She is a diversity and inclusion leading expert, okay? And she's taking a sip, so I think this would just be a great time to find out exactly what she's sipping on, okay?
What's in your cup?
This is a part of the show where we find out what our special guest is sipping on in her cup, and she gives her cup some beautiful cup M. So go ahead and tell us, Kesha, what are you drinking?
I am drinking Positive Energy Sweet Tangerine. Let me show you this.
Oh.
Can you see that?
Yes.
It really, so I'm already a ball of positive energy. So that just gives me an extra boost.
Yes, the host will be able to go sleep tonight, right?
Yes, and of course I have my water.
That's always good. Always good.
Yes, I can't show up without my water.
And then what did your cup say? I saw it said faith, but I couldn't see all the words clearly.
Faith is being sure of what we hope for and certain for what we do not see, baby.
Yes.
Hebrews 11:1. Faith.
Yes.
All this stuff we get to do, we got to do it by faith. All of it.
I love it.
Kids and them out to society. We have to do it in faith. Doing this work we get to do, being authors, speakers, we got to do this stuff in faith, knowing that God called us for these things, and as we operate in our authentic lanes, knowing that our secret sauce is our secret sauce, nobody can take what we have. This is ours. This is ours, and it's amazing.
Yes. Make sure that you post what you're sipping on down in the comments. And if you don't have a drink, then post what you wish you were sipping on, okay?
Right.
Victoria says, that sounds good. I love tea. Ooh, yes. What's your favorite tea, Victoria? Tell us in the comments. So while you are having your nice girl drink, I'm going to come in with the naughty drink, okay? In my peace sign cup, because I am drinking hot chocolate spiked with Baileys.
Come on. Okay.
So we got naughty and nice going on there.
That's all good. It's all good.
Hashtag no judgments on the happy hour show.
No judgment. Hashtag.
Yes, let us know what you're sipping on. Thanks for tuning in, Kayla. Glad you could be here. And meanwhile, we're going to get back to the show. Post your comments and your questions down below. Share this video out. If you're just tuning in, you're watching the Happy Hour show with Lindsey Vertner and my guest, Kesha Kent. And we had just started getting into diversity and inclusion and networking and making sure that you have people of different backgrounds in your circle. It's great to uplift the people that are around you, but at the same time, that is how you grow and you see different perspectives. For example, where I come from, I was often the only Black person in my circle. And so to then get to college and see other Black people excelling the same way that I excelled, like that did something to my soul. When I went to DC for the first time and to see entire Black communities excelling and wealthy, that was wealthy Black communities. Like that did something to my soul. Like I knew they were out there, they just weren't in my inner circle from my hometown. Okay, not that some of my people weren't great, because many of them were, but not at the level that I saw. And so it pushed me to want to do not only more for myself, not only more for my family, but more for everybody around me. And like,
that's a big deal.
You guys, and I'm excelling, you excelling too. And if you don't want to excel, then I'll catch you later.
Get on out the way. That's a big deal. That is such a big deal, Lindsey. Oh my gosh. That is such a big deal. And if as you think about all of that went into that, oh my goodness, what a revelation and a breakthrough for you. How amazing did that change? How amazing was that, and how it changed the trajectory of your life too? Man,
it's crazy. Because I've always been ambitious and goal oriented. That's just kind of my natural personality. But I was also, like I said, often the only Black person in the room or one of a handful of Black people. And so it's just like those subconscious biases that you talked about earlier, how this is what you're used to, then that's what you kind of grow up believing, because already as a Black woman, I have to feel like I had to do 3 times the work just to equal up to my white counterparts. And so that was exhausting in of itself. Right. So to see those people of color also excel, and it was like, I want to be over there with you for a little bit so I can let my guard down. But there was something else that came up, and I'm sure you've seen this with what you do, is where unfortunately there was a lot of that subconscious bias of there can now only be like one Black person in the room. So now I'm like competing with you because of the predominantly white society making us feel like only one of you are good enough to kind of be in here type of thing. What is your insight on that whole thing? Luckily, I don't surround myself with those types anymore, but
here's what I think regarding that. I think that we have to push and bring others with us just in spite of. because who says tables aren't like that anymore today? Some of them are, but as we get our access, I think we want to make sure that we're bringing people with us. And I read a quote the other day that was absolutely amazing. It said, Black women have, we're tired, and what we're doing at this point is we're forgetting about any tables that we're not invited to, and we're getting wood and building our own tables.
Yes.
And when I read that, it empowered me so much, because when you think about trying to get access, trying to interview, steady interviewing for positions, steady applying, and you're not getting picked or you're not getting the feedback, it's exhausting. And the one thing that I keep saying is keep going in spite of. Understand your strengths and what you bring to the table, so that when you do show up at that table, if you even want to get to that table, be ready. Be ready with your A game, sure of who you are, with the confidence that what you bring to the table, understanding your strengths. And I always go back to the Strengths Finder, because it's an amazing assessment that will help you highlight what your strengths are. And as you understand what they are, stay in your own lane, in your strengths, and operate right there. But if you're working in corporate America and you're doing those things, I always say, when we show up somewhere, we need to make sure we're bringing people with us. And because I have a background in recruitment, I've always worn this diverse hat. So for over 20 years, being in recruitment, I make sure, okay, so you're looking at candidates and I'm the recruiter and I'm going to hire for you. You better know that I'm going to send you some amazing talent that is going to be diverse, whether you ask me or not. So I need to make sure that I am showing up in my authentic self. And if people aren't asking in spaces that we are, bring it to them anyway, unapologetically, and be so radical about it. In these times, what I'm seeing is so many people of color voices that are coming out of the woodworks, people that I haven't even heard from. I've been training different organizations, and to see how people are creating allyships, it is the most beautiful thing that I've ever seen. And really, people are listening to understand, and I keep saying it over and over and over. We don't have the answers. There's no cookie cutter response to any situation, but we must be willing to provide grace, and keep providing more grace and give more grace. People are going to mess up. Nobody's perfect, but be willing to provide grace and understand that this is not something that we all have a blueprint for. But the truth is, when we show up in our authentic selves, we can then say to somebody else, it's okay to be who you are. When we show up, we're giving somebody else permission to come with their best selves.
Yes. Over here in the comments, Victoria says we can all eat. There's enough food for everyone.
Come on, Victoria. It is. It's so much.
Mindset. And what you said resonated with me so much, because I think it was earlier this year, like at the top of the year, I was doing a First Class Life mini series where I interviewed where I interviewed some boss women. And it's crazy because I had a list of, some ladies that I was interested in that I felt fit the description of a first class life, which is showing authentically you and walking it fully in your purpose and living a fulfilled life, and not only for you, but helping others do that as well. And then I had some women that were recommended to me, and it was crazy because I am all about diversity and learning from all different perspectives, because that's whenever you have the greatest impact and best product to put out into the world, the best service to put out into the world, whenever you have all of those perspectives like that. And so, crazy thing that I noticed, though, that I reached out to all of these women of different backgrounds. Guess who the only ones that responded? No, it was actually the other way around. And it was so crazy. One, I was proud for my Black women, stand up and create your own table, right? But on the other hand, I was like, I felt some type of way because not a single non-person of color responded to my message. You know how, Facebook be telling on you, you can see red, or sometimes you can get the red.
Yeah.
So despite having seen my message, and it was very professional and inviting, it wasn't like a cold call or anything like that.
So did you have a relationship with them prior?
Them. A few of them, yes. And like I said, the other ones were recommended and I was new to, and I mentioned that in there, you were recommended by so-and-so. And like, to see if this would be a good fit for you. Because I was essentially going to be promoting them during the whole thing. Like, it was nothing that I was promoting. I was just going to be interviewing them, talking to them about their business and their life, and they could promo whatever they wanted at the end. And it was only the Black women that responded. So half of me was proud and the other half felt some type of way. Like, are you trying to say like you not like I'm beneath you or something? You're too good to be on my stuff as a woman of color? Like, girl, I had a whole moment of come to Jesus and I let that go. And I was like, that's okay. That's exactly why I have my own platform that I can do what I want, and I will accept those that want to uplift and encourage and support with me. I'm not about to beg you to do nothing, honey.
That's good. And that's an amazing point. And what I would say is don't leave it at that. Reach out again. And if these people if you were recommended by someone and you didn't respond, I would go back to that person that recommended them and ask them if they could make another connection or do something where they send an intro email or something where you go beyond those walls. Because when I think about networking and how those walls get built up, I say keep going. It depends on how serious and how bad you want that relationship too. But I say keep going and don't let them off the hook that easy. I had to reach out to my alma mater probably about 3 or 4 times before I went there and spoke on their big stage. I think about all those things and how people get busy and how their schedules are, we don't know what people are going through. But I say, it's a relationship that you're interested in, keep going. Send another message. And then get back again and send another, depending on how bad you want that relationship. There's nothing that says that you can't reach back out again. But think about the times that we're living in, and even period. People get busy, and I've learned in speaking and trying to reach out to other organizations too, people don't always respond, but that's not good. We even have people that I've worked with closely that don't respond. But as a leader, I make sure that I respond within 48 hours if I get an email. And I think I have this recruiting hat, and I always have that HR recruitment hat. And within 48 hours, I make sure that I respond, and I expect people to be like that. And so I have to check myself because everybody's not like that. People are not like that. But again, I would say don't leave it at that. And if, again, somebody recommended them, I would reach out. And if it was me, I would say, look, Lindsey, you recommended so-and-so. I wonder if you can send an introduction email where you're introducing me to her, because I would still love to work with her because of X, Y, Z. And put it back out there. I'm just saying.
Yes. Those tips were spot on, and confirmation that I did the right thing as far as following up and reaching out to the recommenders and all of that stuff. And I'm happy where I'm at now, because that was then.
Good.
And that's your loss, honey. Your loss. And as far as the happy hour show, I have had a great season of guests from all different backgrounds, and I'm so proud of my guests, which you are closing out the season and being awesome and phenomenal as you are.
So I'm the finale.
Yes, you are the last episode of season 1. And listen, viewers at home or wherever you are sitting and watching the show, make sure that you sign up for updates at bit.ly/happy updates. You can see them down below. See the link. Go there, sign up for updates so that you can stay updated on future episodes. You can catch the replays, and sometimes, I guess, give special happy hour specials only to the VIPs that are subscribed. So make sure you stay updated, because today is the last episode of season 1. And then I will be on a little break. Okay. And then we will come back with season 2 in sometime in the future. I don't have an exact date yet because I'm only human. So that's why you got to be on the email list so that you can stay updated when season 2 drops. Okay. So I think that this is a great time to play a little game I like to call
30-second hot shot. Answer the question in 30 seconds or less, or take your shot.
Yes, 30-second hot shot. This is the part of the show where my guest has 30 seconds to answer your questions. Or she's got to take a shot. It doesn't have to be real. It can be 10. It can be tea. So no worries. No judging zone. We don't want to pressure you to do anything.
Okay.
So let's pull up my timer. I am going to read the question and then start the timer, and you'll have 30 seconds. Okay.
Fabulous.
Are you ready?
Ready, Freddie.
Okay. So the first question is, what are your top 3 networking mistakes? Go.
Number 1 networking mistake was not being clear about my target audience going to a networking event. Mm-hmm. Number 2 was showing up to an event, not having any idea of the space and what the actual event was about. And the last one was really not being clear about my follow-up game, and I didn't follow up.
Nice. And you had 2 seconds to spare.
Woo!
Yes. You are already starting off on a great foot. So the next question says, this is going to be the opposite. What are your top 3 networking tips? Go.
Number 1, follow up. Every relationship has value. Make sure that you connect to every person. Number 2, be authentically you. You cannot show up anywhere and be somebody else.
Yeah.
Number 3, understand what your value proposition is and add value. When you show up and add value, people will automatically look for you everywhere when you add value. Add value.
Yes. You did it. You killed it. You still had extra seconds on all of those. Over here in the comments, Victoria says this is a great season finale. Woo, 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 woo. Thank you for tuning in. Yes. So there is one question that I have to ask all of my happy hour guests, because I am all about happiness and being intentional about your life and creating that first class life, which I define as the quality of life that you're creating for yourself, walking fully in purpose, being intentional about creating happiness in every moment that you can, shedding those masks that we put on every day. So when you talk about walking in your purpose and being authentic to who you are, that speaks my language, honey. So the question that I have to ask all of my guests is, how do you intentionally create happiness in your life?
That's a fabulous question. The number 1 way for me is not taking offense to people, their responses, and how they show up. I've learned to not be offended by anyone and what they're doing, because what I've learned is when I'm conscious about who I am, my gifts, my purpose, I'm authentic to who I am, I have to allow people the grace to know who they are and to get to where they are. And remember that people respond to us and they act out based on their perceptions, not based on anything we've done. People respond because of their perception, because of their background, the things and their experiences, and they're valid. I'm learning not to be offended by any of those things. I used to be so offended by people growing up, which is probably why I was fighting a lot, because I was so offended all the time and so worried about people and just not happy with who I was and really allowing people to be who they were. But I would fight a lot. And it was crazy as I think about it today, because had I been conscious then, like I'm conscious today, and I know that we get to grow in seasons, but this consciousness today allows me, I don't care who people are, to give them grace and know that we are all at our own level of who we are at different paces. And I'm not looking to the left to worry about what somebody else does. I'm staying in this lane right here because there's less traffic.
Right. Right. That is awesome. Final words from my guest, Kesha Kent, diversity and inclusion expert, speaker, and author. And listen, if you do not have her book, then let me share with you where you get it. Networking, it is your superpower. Make sure you pick it up today. Tell viewers a little bit about your book.
It is a quick read. It is matter of fact, and it gives you some amazing tips for networking right now, allows you a blueprint to move forward, and it gives you tips on really what to do when it comes to that networking piece. But it takes you from, oh my God, I don't know how to network. I just don't know how to meet people. It helps you get out of that and gives you some great tips. And again, it's a quick read, and I've created it in this time right now for busy people. And when I had my target audience that I looked at, and I had my mastermind, people don't finish reading books, which is why I created it the size that I did, so that they can read it, they can grasp it. And the feedback that I've been getting is amazing. It's a quick read, to the point, and it'll give you some tools to shore up those relationships and keep going in the process. Just say yes. I don't care what it looks like. Just say yes and figure it out.
Yes. I am saying yes for all the viewers at home, because they are going to purchase their book of Networking, It's Your Superpower. Go to the website bit.ly/new book 20 and make sure that you sign up for updates at bit.ly/happy updates. You see it scrolling across your screen right there.
I see it.
So that so that you can stay updated on when season 2 starts, and a very special release about season 1. You can catch the recaps of all of my previous guests. This has been an amazing season, and I'm so happy that you decided to spend your evenings with me, Lindsey Vertner, on the Happy Hour Show. Again, I want to thank my season 1 finale guest, Mrs. Kesha Kent. You make sure you follow her. You see her info right there. Mrs. KeishSpeaks.com is her website. Follow her on Facebook and Instagram at Mrs. Keish Speaks. And make sure that you just go grab your book. And do you have any final words for our viewers?
Stay authentic. Your sauce is your sauce. Your secret sauce is your secret sauce. We keep saying that we have these haters, people are stealing, and they do this and they do that. The truth is, nobody can steal your secret sauce. There can be 45,000 people that do what you do in your zip code. They won't do it like you do it. So stay authentic, stay in your lane, and do what you do on purpose with excellence. Make people look for you when you don't show up, and make them say, "Where's Kesha?"
Yeah.
Make them show up and look for you by giving them an experience every time you show up. Make sure they look for you.
I love it. Those are awesome final words. Thank you again for tuning in. Make sure you sign up for updates. Again, my name is Lindsey Vertner, your peak potential strategist and transformational speaker. And I am so excited for the end of season. Well, not excited for the end, but excited for all of my phenomenal guests from season 1, and excited to bring you season 2 later on down the line. So sign up for updates. And we got our last comment coming in. Round of applause from Victoria. Thank you for tuning in. Sign up for updates. And meanwhile, I will get you guys on my VIP list when you stay updated for future updates. Okay. And with that, I pray you many, many blessings throughout the rest of your 2020. Know that it is still a great year if you decide to make it that. And with that, see you later.
See you.